Welcome to the third in our series of Lent reflections. My name is Ian Baker and I share my church membership allegiances between All Saints and St Andrews. I'm a relative newcomer, having moved to live in Malvern in November 2024. Our reading today is from John 12 verses 1 to 11. Jesus anointed at Bethany. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, where Lazarus lived, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. Here a dinner was given in Jesus' honour. Martha served, while Lazarus was amongst those reclining at the table with him. Then Mary took a pint of pure nard, an expensive perfume. She poured it on Jesus' feet and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. But one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, who was later to betray him, objected. "Why wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor? It was worth a year's wages." He did not say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. As a keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. "Leave her alone," Jesus replied. "It was intended that she should save the perfume for the day of my burial. You will always have the poor among you, but you will not always have me." Meanwhile, a large crowd of Jews found out that Jesus was there and came, not only because of him, but also to see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. So the chief priests made plans to kill Lazarus as well, for on account of him, many of the Jews were going over to Jesus and believing in him. Part of my working life for a major listed company involved dealing with inquiries from private shareholders received by email, letter, phone call, or in person when some would attend the public annual general meeting. It was a few days after one AGM that I received a complaint from one shareholder that the salmon sandwiches offered by the Savoy Hotel were below standard. I regret to say that I lost the plot over this. In sharing this later, a colleague commented with words along the lines of, "Servicing people is generally satisfying, but they do come in all shapes, sizes, characters and opinions, and that can be exhausting and draining." If we look at the chapters running up to our reading, we learn all that had been challenging Jesus and the immediate future that lay ahead. He no longer moved about publicly, had withdrawn to the desert with his disciples, and people were curious as to his whereabouts. His re-entry was inspired by a dinner given by a few close friends. I sense it was a relaxing one, as we are told that Lazarus, who Jesus had restored to life, was reclining at the table. It was an intimate gathering of those who had been associated with Jesus over the years, providing a time of relaxation and refreshment. I suspect each of us has a small group within our wider circle of friends with whom we can share the challenge of life in confidence, be offered wise guidance, receive their support in prayer, and in the context of gentle hospitality. For Jesus, that gathering was cathartic, and in his case, he did not lose the plot when Judas Iscariot expressed his misguided perspective on Mary's act. It prompts me to suggest whether there is someone closely known to us who over the coming weeks needs to be offered the life-easing and refreshing opportunity of a listening and a loving ear. The reflective mood is soon broken when we are told of Mary's gesture of taking a pint of pure nard, an expensive perfume, and pouring it over Jesus' feet and wiping his feet with her hair. This was an audacious act and must have interrupted an otherwise convivial dinner. I'm not a theologian, but I gather that it could well have been regarded as shameful for a Jewish woman to interrupt what was largely a male gathering with unbound hair. My feeling is that it was born out of her long-established relationship with Jesus, wanting to express her love for him and to anoint him, given her perception that time was running out as his death was imminent. Established customs, conventions, or procedures do have their purposes, but sometimes they can thwart and throttle the building of God's kingdom. There are times when putting a head above the parapet, to use a trite phrase, is for the wider good, but only after careful thought and prayer. Who would have thought the refusal by Rosa Parks, with her Methodist church background, not to move from her seat on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955 would result in the desegregation of buses and be a pivotal moment in the fight against racial injustice in the USA? Does this act of Mary serve to prompt us to be at least alert that there may be a time in our lives when we are led by the Holy Spirit to foster a breakthrough of love and compassion for the greater good? Foot washing is a symbol of willingness to serve others, humility, and a reminder that everyone can show kindness by small acts. I end with sharing a personal experience. Some years ago, a former university friend was diagnosed with a rare health condition, such that he had to spend the last few months of his life in UCL Hospital opposite Euston Station in London. His family lived in Dorset, so I tried to visit him once a month to spend an hour with him. Sometimes conversation flowed, and other times, due to his illness, it was very limited. On one visit, we were interrupted by care assistants coming in to wash and massage his feet. Silence prevailed in the room, and I watched as she went about her work, gently, for no more than 10 minutes. Soon after she left the room, my friend simply said that her small act soothed his physical and mental state so much, and for him, it was God's love in action. To this day, I feel privileged to have been present and to be helped to understand Mary's act more deeply.